before we jump anywhere this year, I really want to do a lot more things that will benefit you, not only for entertainment but also for your spirituality and also your soul. Sometimes when I react to these K-pop video shows, as I'm reacting to it, it triggers a thought here and there. So I'm gonna do a bit of a journal to jot that down. So I hope that you can get a chance to watch it with me. Hopefully every time you watch it, it will bring you a bit of life. And you know, just like eating celery and eating carrots is good for you, sooner or later you realize that it's really good for your soul, and you're just like be hooked onto continuing down this really healthy spiritual keto diet path. Let's just put it that way. So watch out for it. Okay, now back to the video. Oh god. Oh, I gotta pause here because this just talked about evolution and natural selection, and I know this is what we've all been taught in high school, especially in high school bio, but it's just a clever lie used to control a lot of people. Hear me out. When you have natural selection, first of all, we know that in the human species this does not exist. I see a lot of disabled people that are not perfect. Even I'm a little bit dyslexic, you know, so by natural selection I should have died off, but I'm still alive here, you know, very well alive. And so you know that in the human species this doesn't exist. Now there may be some adaptation things that happen, but I believe it's more a social construct that's used to control a lot of people by letting people believe that that's the case. For example, if you have things like natural selection, people will always be competing against each other. I don't know about you, some competition is good, but too much competition, especially just sometimes it's just these meaningless competitions, you know what I mean? Like you always have to perform, you always have to do this, always have to be better than someone, you always have to lay this, that. After a while the pressure gets really tiring and you just feel so like drained inside. You don't know that it's bad for your spirituality and it's bad for your soul. And when you have this sort of natural selection things, or so they try to convince us, this creates an inequality between the rich and the poor, between the strong and the weak. They're saying that the stronger will keep getting stronger. Why? Is because they then craft a society and a system, stereotypes, and the way that you believe things, and the way that, I don't know, media runs, advertisements run, and it's all crafted to be part of the system that is going to emphasize the inequality. And this is what they mean by natural selection. And when we see that in reality, in terms of practical sense, not just in like a bio textbook or in any, you know, evolutionary argument thesis, you know. What I see is that you then end up with a lot of businesses that are supposed to serve you, but instead they serve the shareholders. It's all seek to make money off you who are poorly trying to work very hard to just make a living and to live a decent life without starving, and actually have a bit of quality to your life and a bit of enjoyment as well. These natural selection theories, the society that it creates out of that, really is disgusting. So that's not what I believe. I believe in a God who creates, and he himself is infinite and abundant, so he doesn't need natural selection to let things, you know, win out against each other and then survive on this kind of thing, because he is abundant. If it didn't exist, he would just make more. He is so abundant that he has created enough for everyone. You know, we have starving children in the world, in third world countries and stuff like that, but a lot of this is not because God didn't create enough, it's because people don't know how to share, and people hoard up a lot of stores. So in the Bible, God has a place where he keeps saying, change the system. Right now he lets us control it and we mucked it up to become like this, but next time he's gonna create a system where people don't need money to buy things, and where people do not hoard up all these treasures so that everybody has enough to share and enough to go around. This is a truly equal society that God wants to build for the good of us. And you gotta realize why there's so much talk from Christians about sin and save your soul and this kind of stuff is because as long as you have sin, you're gonna corrupt the system so that it doesn't function properly anymore. And when it doesn't function properly, things like inequality happen. And as long as you have sin in you or sinful nature, not necessarily committing the sin yet, but if your inclination is to go astray from the right path, which every one of us has in us, because we all have inherited from Adam and Eve a fallen nature, then you essentially become a slave to yourself, slave to your own soul, slave to your own wants. Notice yourself, next time you walk past something that you like, I bet you in your subconsciousness, even if you thought, oh no, I don't have enough money to buy that, next thing you know, you will keep going inside your mind again and again and again and again, and eventually when you have the capability to buy that thing, you will go ahead and action it. Why? Because you're actually a slave to yourself. You don't actually have the self-control and the willpower to actually say, no, I'm not gonna get that, and actually it's not that great a thing, and you don't have the choice to not do what you want. When you truly have the choice to do what you want and the choice to not do what you want, because sometimes what you want is not necessarily good, it's actually, it could be sinful, right? So when you choose to not do your addictions, when you have the freedom to do that kind of thing, then you have true freedom. And this true freedom can only be found when you submit your whole self to the living God. Then he will, when you submit to him, he in effect doesn't control you because he values freedom so much. He actually gives you back 100% all of that freedom so that you can be free of yourself. When you give him the control, he then gives you freedom over your own self. He then gives you freedom over your own addictions. So there's a lot of people, if you're struggling with addiction right now, I know some of you hear me. So if you're struggling with addiction right now, this is the reason why you can't get off your addictions, is because your life, you don't have control of your own life. You haven't given God the control of your life to the point that you then have the freedom to control your own life. And I can say this because I also was very, very addicted to different things like pornography and stuff like that, and I was able to shake that off when I give my own control 100% back to God, and he then gives me the strength to overcome myself. And this is such a beautiful, such a powerful thing. This is the power of the resurrection, the power of the resurrected God that then makes you feel alive. Then you won't end up like a lot of people that we know that then overdose on drugs or alcohol or whatever, and they are just not free to be themselves, and they're struggling so much with these issues, and there's nobody to tell, nobody who gives them a way out. In God, you have that way out. So I hope that you find it just like I did, and I will pray for you and look to one day seeing you on the other side with your full freedom in God, who wants all the good for you and want to see you free from yourself. In that day, we can give each other a hug and go grab a coffee together. So I really hope that you can come to appreciate the freedom that you can get, and this is a true possibility for you, and it's not this natural selection junk that people come up with, because God is too abundant for that sort of limitations.